Good morning, children. This is your host, your mentor, Akash, and I welcome you back to this class. And I definitely hope for your healthy living. All right, children, if you remember in the last class, we had discussed about modes of communication, the importance of language in communication, and of course, one common language that has to govern every other language in order to communicate with people of different nationalities, those who inherit to the properties of different language. Now, children, if you remember, there were several ways to communicate your expressions, your feelings, your experiences to others. If you remember, the first was through body language, the second was through writing, and the third was through speaking. Of course, in chronological order as we practice it. Now, children, in this we are going to learn as to how we have to proceed forward chronologically or in a serial order with English. So let us begin. Now, general concepts of English language. Now, children, I've tried to mold this concept into individual explanatory concepts. Therefore, I've termed it as general concepts of English language. The power start. Okay, let's give it a head start, children. Now, let me brief you with an example. Every morning when you get up, just like when I used to get up when I was a kid, my mother used to treat me very early in the morning with a cup of milk or possibly with a mug of milk. Now, she used to add some powdered material into it. That was a booster, perhaps usually or generally known as Horlicks. Then you've got Boost, and then you've got another one that's Bonvita. Now, children, that's a power start. How do we give a power start to English language? By understanding the very basic concept of the language itself, that is, alphabets, the letters. Heading on, we get alphabets divided into two categories. Those are vowels and then consonants. I'm going to definitely give you a detailed description of what these are. Playing with alphabets. Children, understanding a language or absolutely understanding anything is definitely a gameplay only if you are interested and you know the basic details as to how do you venture into a game. Without the rules, of course, you will definitely end up creating fouls, sometimes forced and sometimes unforced. So, therefore, we should know the gameplay or the rules to the gameplay with alphabets. Okay, heading on to the third one, we've got syllables here. Now, children, when you will compare the index, or I may say indices, of several layers of classifications of English grammar in the curriculums, you will never see syllables as a part of that curriculum. Now, syllables is definitely important because it's the base, it's the platform to the pronunciations that we make. Up ahead, we have how to pick on syllables. Now, every word, every single word, no matter it's a single letter word, has got some syllable associated with it, and therefore, because of the presence of that syllable, it has got a certain pronunciation, and you have to smart that pronunciation. Moving on, though I have tagged it as an important concept for classes 4, 5, and 6, what I believe that with the kind of environment that we are in, we don't get ample opportunities and people to have conversations or to express our feelings within English. That's a problem. So therefore, because of the presence of this lack of environment here with us, and of course with our upkeep, we need to understand that there are several equipments that we have to practice on our own, and therefore it's not just classes 4, 5, 6, and 7, or the middle classes, the other middle classes that have to equip themselves with syllables, with alphabets, with power and gameplay of alphabets, with words, but every other class itself. Because we definitely, some of us, we don't come from a background that has got sound knowledge of this language called English. So, therefore, we have to empower ourselves and we have to definitely preserve this language. And how can we do that? Only by creating an environment for ourselves. No matter the person we are speaking to is we ourselves. All right. Okay, now what you see here is equipments of the language. I have divided the language to equip them with six different weapons. Now, see, children, two out of the six have been shaded in black, whereas the rest four, the last four, have been shaded in red. The reason being that we are only going to venture into the first two, and into the last four, we're going to venture into these four, or into these last four in my next class. All right, children. The power start as I spoke. Now, role of alphabets. What is the demeanor? What is the behavior? What is the role of alphabets in our life? Now, children, the first function, if somebody asks you what alphabets do, what are alphabets there for in English language, you would definitely reply with this common answer that alphabets, they combine to form words. And that is definitely true. This is the first thing that we are taught. The moment we are exposed to the concepts of English language, the moment we explore this beautiful ocean of English language. So definitely we understand that alphabets combine to form words. Next up, I'm going to present to you a blend of knowledge and English. Not language, but English, right? Here, what you see here is a picture with a white background, and up front we've got a mouse on it. Now, only if you have gone through a series of these or the episodes of these cartoon channel, I believe that you definitely would know that this is a character or a cartoon character named Jerry. Next up, we've got three more, and in chronological order, moving from left to right, you can see Supersonic. The next, or the character in the middle, is Winnie the Pooh, and the third is Donald Duck, with his hat being waved at you. Now, children, these are all toons. I guess not many of you would not be knowing that cartoons can also be abbreviated as toons, and the abbreviation in itself is a word in itself. All right. Next up, we've got a car. What color is it? It is blue in color. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to understand that there are several words that are needed in order to express things, in order to express pictures. So, and these words, when combined, they form sentences, and sentences are what are needed to communicate with others. So, the basic building blocks are alphabets, or in a way, they are words. Next up, we have a beautiful white colored house with a brown roof on top. Next up, we've got, of course, a bicycle. All right, children, moving on. Becoming friends with alphabets. In other ways, I can also say befriending alphabets. It's just the way you interpret English. The more you learn about words in English, just like I said, becoming friends or befriending alphabets. It's more or less the same thing. Now, the first, learn to frame words from different alphabets. Writing more and more words will give you confidence, will develop your vocabulary. Now, I have chosen here a few alphabets at random. Now, words starting with alphabet A. The first word that I've chosen here is Almira. It's not Almira, it's not Almira, it's Almira. The second is apple, and the third is alarm, clock. Moving on to words starting with alphabet C. We've got curtain, we've got cot, and we've got cupboard. Words starting with alphabet H. I did not pronounce it as H. I said it is H. Now, the first word starting with H is hairbrush, the second is heater, and the third is hand wash. Now, words starting with alphabet I. I'm so sorry. Words starting with alphabet P. The first is phone, a mobile phone, a telephone, or any other kind of a phone, a portable phone for that matter. Next up is pillow, and the third is pitcher. Now, children, the commonality in these 12 words that I've chosen here is that all these articles, some are edible, some are definitely not. So, all these articles are found in the house itself. Now, you need to understand what a cot is. We usually call it a bed, whereas it's very similar to a bed. A cot, right? Next up, we usually tend to call mobile phone a mobile, whereas we don't understand that it is definitely not mobile. Mobile is an adjective used for anything that has the power to move from one place to another, that is transitory in nature. So it's not a mobile that you own, but a phone that you use, which is mobile in nature. Hence, we bring together the two words, which is mobile phone. If you only call it a mobile, you are definitely heading the wrong way, the wrong direction, the wrong rule, if you remember from the last class. All right, children. Next up, a very important concept that we often lack in the curriculum, no matter we deal with the curriculum of CBSE, ICSE, or state boards. Now, children, the second and the most important task that alphabets perform is that they contribute to form syllables. Now, how do we define a syllable? A syllable is a basic unit of sound that makes some certain meaning. I'm going to redefine it in different words. Now, if I say it's the most, it's the smallest organizational tone that we use in English language, which certainly refers to a certain meaning. Now, monotone helps us in pronunciation. Monotone. If I say tone, you can refer it to as syllable. A syllable is a tone, it's a basic unit of sound. That's what we're going to study about here. Now, monotone helps us in pronunciation. What's a monotone? A single tone that is actually a syllable, and it helps us in pronunciation. Now, behavior of syllables. The demeanor of syllables, the behavior of syllables is that they bridge or they join vowels and consonants so that they form a particular tone and they hold a certain meaning out there. Now, we know that the English alphabets, those are 26, are divided into two categories. One is vowel, which contains five alphabets. Those are A, E, I, O, U, and the rest are all consonants. How many are there? Of course, 21. All right, children, the family of syllables. Just like we've got families, syllables got a family of their own that we need to study about and, of course, understand. If you remember the last slide, the last concept that I had given to you, the only don't that I had discussed with you in my previous class, it was do not mug up. No mugging up. No rote learning. All right, children, moving ahead, we've got now a syllable can consist of, or it can have one or more than one letter, which will prove to be a sound later on. Now, if I see the first example being quoted here is queen. Now, if you see queen here, you see a double E here. We're not talking about any consonants out here. We are only heading to the double E's used here. Those are the two vowels used together. But what is the sound that you see or you hear? It's a double E that is a stretched E here. So a syllable gives you one sound, but it's using two letters. Those are double E. So a syllable might contain of a single letter and one sound, or a syllable might contain of consist of double letters or possibly more than two, but that will definitely refer to just one sound. So one syllable, one sound, or I can also call it monotone. This is what you need to remember. This is what you need to draw as a picture in your brains so that every time you need this rule with you, you can just take a book. All right. A syllable can consist of or can have one or more than one letter, just like queen. If I say hop, I see one vowel in between. It's like if I can call it one vowel being sandwiched between two consonants. So it's no different. Next is jug. Next is tree. The other is dog. So what you see in dog, jug, and hop, that there is one syllable, there is one vowel, and there is just one sound. But if we talk about the other two words, those are queen and tree, you see that there is of course one sound, but there are two vowels used. So you need to understand that syllable can make use of one letter, sometimes two, and very rarely three to make one sound. Next up, we have a syllable can have more than one consonant and, of course, more than one vowel. Just like HOP in the previous explanation, hop, jug, dog, these will be considered as one tone or one syllable in itself. It's, of course, a word, but it's been oriented, it's been arranged in such a manner that it becomes one word or monotone. All right. A syllable can have more than one consonant and more than one vowel. Now, children, there is a different formula using which we understand syllables, but I'm not going to discuss that formula over here. It has a different coda that uses or that gives us a different end and a better understanding to syllables. But then, without the board, it's not so easy to make you understand. But then we'll deal with it, and it's very easy to understand. How do you guess how many syllables in a word are, and what are the different syllables that comprise of a word? All right. Now, examples: visual, reach, sphere. Now, visual. How many vowels can we trace out here? We can trace three vowels, but what we are doing here is we are not chasing vowels, we are chasing vowel sounds. For example, if I say CRY, cry, there are no vowels here, CRY, but what you observe in that word is it's CRAI as per its pronunciation goes. Cry, CRAI. How many pronunciations or how many tones do you see here? I, cra, I, cry. So there's a variation. It starts with A and it blends into I and ends in I itself. So it's cry. So this is what we're going to notice here and of course observe here and then reinforce the rule so that we understand it better. Now, visual. Coming back to visual. You've got whiz. Why have we used whiz? Why not viju together? It's because we often try to club a vowel with consonants surrounding it, with consonants sandwiching it. Therefore, it becomes whiz. U, a vowel can stand a monotone in itself, but a consonant cannot. I repeat again, a vowel alone can give you a tone, of course, not a consonant. But there are times when consonants also become a symbolic tone. For example, if I say, let us say rhythm, RHYTHM. Now, if I say rhythm, now I can see that that rhyth encloses a vowel sound in between a pair of consonants on both sides, right? So it becomes RHYTHM, rhythm, rhythm. That M actually refers to a symbolic consonant or a symbolic syllable. Next, we've got reach. Do you see a double E when I pronounce reach? Of course not, but it is pronounced that way. So that means when you combine E, A after a after a consonant at the starting of the word, it becomes a double E in terms of its pronunciation. So that's a rule. Very simply understood. Reach, right? Sphere. Now, it's not spare. Many of us we've got certain problems with our lip syncing when it comes to speaking words. So you have to clear that for yourself. How do you do that? Stand in front of a mirror, talk to yourself. You have to understand that what you're speaking is sometimes going wrong, and every time you go wrong, you have to understand. You have to reinvent it. You have to try to remove it forever. All right, next up. The left part of the slide shows you what a syllable can consist of or what can it be, what can it possess. The right side is going to tell you what can it not be. So a syllable cannot denote or make more than one sound. Just as I told you in the previous slide, it's called a monotone, whereas mono means or mono refers to one. Next up, we've got examples. For example, if I say go, go has got just one vowel that terminates in a vowel, of course, and O is the sound that it terminates with. So there's just one sound. and one vowel. So it's a syllable, a monosyllabic word. Television has been broken down for you into its various syllables that it uses. Tel. Now, what do you see here? You see a vowel sound sandwiched between two consonants. Then you've got E, tele, tell E. So, therefore, we have to pronounce it differently. How many E's do you see? Do I pronounce while I use this word E, this letter E here? Tele. Somewhere sounds like two, but it's just one. So television. That's how you do it. Visual has been done for you earlier as well. Visual. All right. Next up, in a syllable, the consonant or the consonants and the vowel or the vowels used cannot make more than one sound. Just in the left corner, you've got it written that a syllable can make use of more than one consonants or more than one vowels, but it will never be able to make more than one sound. One syllable will only make one sound. Next, types of syllables. Now, children, just as I told you, syllables is a different family and an entire family in itself. Therefore, we need to learn what types of syllables are available for us to use. Now, first up, we've got open syllables. What are open syllables? Open syllables are syllables that end in vowels and the tone is stretched while speaking. Just like there will be one vowel where the word or the syllable will be terminated, but we are going to stretch it up to an extent where we would feel that there are two vowels used, but there will only be one vowel used and it will terminate over there in that vowel itself. Now, for example, go, go, has been discussed in the earlier slide. Go. It has got only one. It's not being stretched as well. Now, next up, we've got the tone is stretched while speaking. For example, open. It's open. Other examples are go, he, she, we, no, I, me. That's a high. T, B. Now, let's move on to closed syllables. Closed syllables have vowels that terminate or that end in consonants. It's very simple. Open syllables, they terminate in or they end in vowels, whereas closed syllables, they terminate or end in consonants. For example, if I say step, step takes two consonants to start. It takes a vowel sound E in the middle, whereas it's definitely a vowel called E that is being used, but the sound is a step, right? And P, it terminates in a consonant, therefore it becomes a closed syllable and it will not be stretched, if you remember. Other examples are go. If I use another consonant at the end of go, it becomes got. It becomes got, and got is a closed syllable. Her, shell, wet, not, it, men, or met for that matter, hit, him, team, teach, teak, then B becomes bet. So these are closed syllables. Briefing you again, open syllables are syllables that end in vowel sounds, whereas closed syllables are syllables that ends in or that terminates in consonant sounds. Next, we've got tripper, comment, and syllable. Let me tell you, tripper, break this down into trip and per. Similarly, break comment down into com and ment. What do you see? Trip, per. So every time, if you use a consonant ending or a closed syllable, whenever you'll use an extension to that word, you're going to repeat the letter that that syllable terminates at. Now, for example, if I say flip, I see a short I pronounced in between flip. So I've used P, so it's a closed syllable. If I want to write flipped, I cannot write FLIPED. So it's a rule that says you need to use a double consonant in between flipped, flip it, comment, comment it, then syllable. Next, types of syllables again. We've got monophthongs here. Now let's define what monophthongs or monophthong are. Monophthong is a tone when a vowel is spoken with exactly one tone. Now, possibly understanding this definition would be a little difficult task for you. Let's make it easier by using examples and understanding what monophthong or monotones are. The first is sheep. I don't call it sheep, I call it sheep, right? Next is ship. It's a short I. Whereas in the first I'm using double E, so therefore it has to be stretched. For example, if I say keep, I don't call it keep that book on the table. I call it keep the book on the table. So a double E, that means a stretch of the vowel sound. Next, we've got good. It's not good, it's good. So it's a short U using a double O. Look, took, broom. Now, BROOM. We don't call it broom, we call it broom. Why? Because what you see there is it starts with BR. So I'm using two consonants at the starting and then I'm switching over to one consonant at the terminating or at the terminating point or at the end. Just like the fourth example tells you, shoot starts with two consonants, ends at one. So I'm using a long O pronunciation, a long U pronunciation there, shoot, right? Similarly, if there's one consonant at the starting and one consonant at the end, I'm going to use it as a short tone, good. Next, we've got bed. If I say DEAD, dead. Now, what you see here are confluence of the two tones. They are similar, they are likely. Now, but one is using E and the other is using EA, bed, dead. So that is how you understand that there are certain ways, there are certain rules that will help you understand the pronunciation. What are those rules? They'll all be delivered by the term called syllables and by understanding the family or how the entire family of syllables work, right? So the fifth one is bed. It uses a single E to give you the pronunciation of bed, right? Next up is teacher. We're not focusing on the second and the third alphabets here, EA, teacher, but we are more focused about CHER, teacher. Now, bird. If you see BIRD, bird, I don't call it bird. It's not a short tone. It's a long tone, bird, right? How do I understand? Now, if you go to um, the fourth example again, that is shoot. In the same manner, I told you broom. So one which uses two consonants at one end and it uses one consonant at one end. The same goes for this word, that is BIRD. What you see here is R and D are two consonants used at one end and B one consonant that is used at one end. So it's bird, it's elongated. Door, DOOR. The next is kite. It's cat, CAT. It's the bed, cat. Just a little difference. Up, UP, up. What sound do you hear here? I hear a up here. It's not basically a U sound. Where did we observe a U sound? In the third example, good, right? Next up, far. So if there are two consonants at both the ends and involved with an A or a vowel sound using A in between, if I say jar, CAR, car, so that means it's an elongated A, right? Then it comes to on, ON, off, off, on, ox, oven, right? So this is how monophthongs are followed. Although the symbols that are given to you right above the words that have been quoted as examples are a little difficult. So we're not going to traverse into that part of the pronunciation on monophthongs here. Next up, we've got some other examples of monophthongs that have got one tone. If I say half, it's not half, it's half. Then we've got here. Then we've got caught that we've already used. Then we've got burst, right? I don't call it burst. It's burst. Why? You see the same orientation. At one end you've got multiple consonants. At the other end you've got just a single consonant. So that uh, that's the sound of the vowel used stretches. beyond normal. School, it's a double O. You can't help it. So it's school, right? If I say TOOL, tool, right? Then cot. If you try to associate the word that is in blue to the word that is in yellow oak, cot and cot, it's more or less similar tone that we get to here when we pronounce cot and cot. So what's the difference? If I say COT, if we, there is absolutely no difference when it comes to hearing that tone. It's cot and it's cot. So that means it's referring these two words using the different alphabets or vowels here in order to create a sound are using different sounds, are using different alphabets, I'm sorry, but they're referring to the same tone, the same syllable, the same mono sound or the monotone. Chair. What do you see here? AI, the combination gives you a single tone, a monophthong. Beard. Then sheep. Doubly in between the randomly oriented consonants, therefore we have to stretch the sound. Next up, diphthongs. We're done with monophthongs now. Let's talk about diphthongs. If you remember, monophthongs were sounds that were made by using a single vowel. Next up, we've got diphthong, which is a sound that is made by combining two vowels when it starts with one vowel and it blends into the other one and then ends up there. So it's a mixture of two sounds. It's very clearly visible. If I say toy, how many vowels do you see that have been written? There is one vowel that has been written, that is TOY. The vowel is O. There's just one vowel. But how many sounds do you see? Do you hear? I'm sorry. It's toy. So there are two sounds that are easily audible. Next up, we've got fair. Fair. Next up, we've got bright. Bright. So what I see here is BRAIGHT when I pronounce it. Bright. So these are diphthongs. Next up, we've got pie. We see IE here, but the pronunciation clearly justifies the fact that we are trying to pronounce an A first and then an I at the last. So there are two vowel sounds of first of A, that is A, pa, A, and then next is A, pie. But we're using two different vowels here, that is I and E. So we need not confuse that we are chasing vowels here. Of course not. We are only trying to figure out the vowel sounds here, not the vowels. Definitely we are using vowels when we are writing, but we are referring to vowel sounds when we are speaking. So that is of utmost importance when it comes to speaking in English. Next up, we've got oil. I see an O, and an I pronounced in the beginning. Oil. Next is fear. It's not fair. Fair is FAIR. It's a completely different diphthong comparative to fear. It's fear. Similarly, it's dear. Very similar to fear, but they are making use of two different vowels. One is a set of E and A, the other is a set of E and E. Next is cry, fry, try, bry, bright. Then we've got coil, COIL. Again, it's very similar to oil. In fact, it's like identical to oil. Okay, the third category is triphthongs. We rarely find examples of triphthongs here, but there are a few words that still give us traces of triphthongs being used. So just like monophthong and diphthongs, the kind or the framework of the definition is almost the same. Triphthong is a sound that is made by combining two vowels and where it starts with one vowel and ends in another by blending into the middle one in between, just like fire, inspire. Next up, we've got dire. Then we've got Ireland. So what you will observe here is the combination of sounds. You will observe three sounds, but definitely they're not making use of three vowels. Okay, how to back this exercise up? We usually call it assignments or worksheets. What I say is backup plans, reinforcement plans. Now, children, until you back yourself up, this is only going to become a written knowledge that will never be inculcated into your spoken skills, into your audible skills. So, unless you do that, you are definitely not going to master the skill of communication. Now, children, concerning this monophthongs, diphthongs, and triphthongs, I'm going to render you a framework of worksheets of several types so that you individually answer those questions that will directly associate with um, monophthongs, diphthongs, and triphthongs. So, children, this is it for today. Thank you and have a nice day. God bless you all.